Hi guys, it's Paula and I hope you are doing well. This is going to be my monthly update for Pan in Every Palette. This is my update for August. It is late. We're into September. I'm running late, but it's going to be a good update and I'm really excited to talk about it. In this project, my goal is to eventually, one day, have one pan in every palette that I own. This Pan in Every Palette hashtag was created by Lady Pans a Lot over on Instagram, and it is a group collab, so I'll have her Instagram account linked down below, along with other people that I know of that have been doing this project over the years. This is a long-term project, obviously, as the name would suggest, especially if you're somebody like me that has a lot of palettes. And I'm working on eyeshadow palettes and face palettes of all types, so they're all included in this project, and my goal is to have one pan on all of them when this is all said and done. And I've been thinking about it more and more, which is kind of silly to think about it because I still have a long way to go in this project to get to one pan in every palette, but I kind of feel like as soon as I do eventually meet that goal, we're going for 2 pans in every palette, right? I have to. So this is never going to end because then we're going to go for 3 pans in every palette, and we're going to pan some makeup, and it might take the rest of my life, but we're just going to keep doing what we do. So this is a very exciting update. I have a good month for you guys. In fact, I'm going to have to pause this video, check on some notes that I took because I have to remind myself of some things. But this is a good month and I'm really excited to show you guys what I've been up to as far as this project. All right, let's get into it. Because things move kind of slowly around here, I have decided that in this project, I will keep tallies of my usage so that not only can we confirm that I am making progress, but we can see about how many uses it does take to eventually hit pan on some of these products, especially since a lot of these products are almost or practically brand new when I roll them into this project. My collection was largely untouched before I started project panning, and now that I'm project panning, I tend to just focus on like something until it's gone. So in this project, a lot of the things that I'm working on are pretty much brand new. So I am keeping tally of how many times I'm using these products when they roll into this project until I hit pan on them. And I'm excited to report that I did hit pan on one of the 3 palettes I'm working on in this project. It is my little Lancome multi-palette. I call it a multi-palette because it has eyeshadow and face products in it. Here it is right there. There is my pan. I do have some like hard pan over here, which I'm not too worried about. I will deal with that at a later point. This is a blush. These are 2 eyeshadows. And there is my big old pan right there. I am very proud of this pan. This has been a really nice setting powder. I really enjoy this very much, and I could absolutely see myself coming back around to this powder very soon to finish off completely. There isn't a ton of product in here, but as far as this project goes, my goal is to hit pan, and I have achieved that goal, and I'm so happy. It turns out it only took me 46 uses to hit pan on that product. I did use it another 10 times after hitting pan on it, and 15 of those uses happened in the past month. So once I hit pan on it, I put it away for a while and I was focusing on some other face powders. And then at the very end, I did come back around to this and use it a few more times this past week. I'm actually wearing this today. But yes, I am so happy to have another pan and a palette. And I really enjoyed this powder very much. I thought it was a really good face powder. Lancome knows what they're doing, man. They're pretty good. My progress on the other 2 palettes in this project are less impressive, but let's talk about them anyways. I'm sad to say that I did not touch this palette at all, not even once in the past month. I talked about this in my Panner's Pan project, but I basically committed the entire month of August to this palette right here, my just peachy mattes, and I was using this corally shade, and I just didn't feel, I mean, my personal opinion, I could be wrong, but I didn't feel like the 2 shades would go together. So I had this corally shade in this palette, and I have this shimmery, like mauvey, dusty, pinky shade in this palette, and yeah, can you see them both? Yeah. I didn't feel like they went together in an eye look. And I really thought that as I got closer to this update, I would put this away or have pan in it and be able to start working on this one. And I I just kept going with this day in and day out thinking tomorrow I'll hit pan, tomorrow I'll hit pan, and it never happened. So unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to use this shade at all in the past month. I'm disappointed, but it is what it is. And finally, the third palette I've been working on in this project is this little duo from Ulta Beauty. It's just a deluxe sample, and it's a bronzer highlighter duo. I'm not sure exactly what this bronzer is called. It's just labeled as a bronzer, but I did use it 12 times over the past month. I was working on that pink leopard bronzer that I had in my friend's project pan, and I wasn't able to hit pan on that bronzer when the finale came for that project, but I knew I was close enough that I wanted to keep working on it until I did hit pan. I am happy to report that I did hit pan in that palette. That won't count towards this project because I already had pan in another bronzer in that palette, but I just couldn't move on to this until I hit pan in that palette. Like, I was just too far in. So I have hit pan on that pink leopard bronzer, and now I'm working on this one. Do you want to see the pan? Let me go get the palette and I'll show you the pan. That project is over, so there's no new updates where I'm going to talk about this, so I might as well bring it up here. But I did hit pan right there, right exactly where I suspected I would hit pan. So I now have pan here and here. Like I said, that doesn't help me towards my pan in every palette because I've already counted this as a palette with pan because of this guy. But I am very relieved to have pan in this, and even though it didn't happen by the finale, I was able to eventually finally meet my goal. And I was able to kind of come around with this bronzer and find a way to appreciate it. It took almost the entire project, but of course at the very end, I was kind of on speaking terms with this bronzer, and I'd been having a hard time with it throughout the majority of the project. So I'm really happy that I can put this away now and move on with my life. So at this point, the only powder bronzer that I'm currently working on is this guy. I wasn't sure about this shade. I was a little worried that it might be too orange, but it is the bronzer I have on today, and I love it. I absolutely love it. It might be a little orange, but I don't care. I like the way it looks on me very, very much. So I've been enjoying this. I have no idea how long it's going to take. This was an untouched palette prior to me rolling it into this project, and I've only used it 12 times. So let's go. Let's see how long it takes. Hopefully it won't take forever. I thought I might use the highlighter a time or two, but I haven't touched this at all yet. Maybe sometime while I'm working on this palette, I will play around with the highlighter. But I am really happy with the bronzer. I like it very much, and I'm looking forward to really getting into this more over the next month. So that's where we're at with the 3 palettes that I've been working on in this project. I am going to need to roll in something new to replace that Lancome palette. But before we do that, let's talk about pan percentage. Another thing that I'm tracking as part of these pan in every palette updates is my pan percentage. Since my ultimate goal is to have a pan in every palette, I figured why not see how it's coming along, and let's see how long it takes me to get there. As of last month, I had 388 palettes in my makeup collection, and 32 had pan, leaving me with a pan percentage of 8.2%. This month, for the first time in a very, very, very long time, my overall count of palettes has gone up by 1 because of this Colored Rain palette, the Safari Rain palette that came into my collection, which brings my overall palette count up to 389 palettes. However, I'm very happy to report that I have not just the pan in my Lancome palette this month, but over the past month, I've hit pan in 2 other palettes. I can't show you what they are just yet. They will be coming up in Project Pan updates very soon, but I do have 2 new pans. Well, I guess I could talk about one of them. I just can't show it to you. One of them is the lightest shade in my Clinique Teddy Bear palette, which is my 1/2 of my Pan That palette for this year. At my update last month, I had the tiniest speck of pan showing, barely showing, and I have expanded the pan, which is why I cannot show you because I have that update coming very soon. But I did hit pan in that, and then there's a third pan, which you haven't seen yet, that I've hit pan, but will be coming up in the next 10 days or 11 days or so. So as of right now, I have 35 palettes out of my 389 palettes with at least 1 pan. Couldn't be happier about that, which brings my overall pan percentage to 8.9%. I cannot believe it. In just 2 months, I am almost out of the 8s. I was stuck in the 7% range for 6 months. And in just 2 months, I've gotten into the 8s and I'm almost out of the 8s. And by next month, I should be into the 9% as long as I don't buy 50 pallets. So I couldn't be happier about where I'm at with this project. I'm very, very happy to be at 8.9% with my pan percentage. And I'm glad that adding that new pallet into my stash didn't affect my numbers too much, because I was a little bit worried about that. But it seems to be that the important number is the smaller number and how many pallets with pan, not the overall number. That has less of an impact on my pan percentage. So that's where we're at with my pan percentage. Let's talk about what I'm bringing in to replace that Lancome palette. I was pretty sure that out of all the palettes that I have that include a face powder in them, the Lancome one was the last that didn't have a pan in it already. However, I was able to find another palette that has a face powder in it. So I am very excited to be able to bring in a new face powder to work on in the same way that I was working on that Lancome face powder. And it comes from my Smashbox Masterclass palette. I wish I could remember what year this was from. I want to say 2018, but that could be wrong. But this is basically an untouched palette. This is also kind of a weird situation. I mean, I suppose I could technically count each of these as a separate palette, but I don't think I'm going to do that. But right here is another matte powder, and I forgot I had it. It's called Highlight, although it's not shimmery. It's completely matte. And I'm hopeful that I'll be able to use this as an all-over face powder. It's might be a little bit dark. I'm not sure. Hopefully I can make it work. I've never used it before. This is an untouched palette for the most part. Yeah, I don't think I've ever used this palette even once. It's just been collecting dust. Yeah, so I'm rolling this in for what I believe is the last face powder that I have in a palette. I have lots of face powders. I'm not talking about needing to go out and run out and buy one. But as far as pan in every palette, I believe this is my last palette that has a face powder in it that I need to hit pan in. And then that's not going to be a category I can bring into this palette project. Right now I'm working on a bronzer, a face powder, and an eyeshadow. Once this is gone, the face powder is not going to be an option. But there's a twist. I've decided to bring in another palette. For the longest time, I was working on 4 palettes in this project. And then like before the end of the year last year, I went down to 3, and I've been at 3 for about a year now. And I'm ready to bring in another 4th. And there's a reason why. There's 2 reasons why. Let me show you what the palette is and the shadow is, and then I'll tell you the reasons. Unfortunately, one of these shadows does not want to stay in, so I'm just going to move it out so I don't drop it. So the palette I am going to be bringing in is my Morphe 35F palette. Here it is right here. I've only used this palette once, believe it or not. I know some of these shadows look very well loved, but I've only used this palette once. It was for a dust collector's Get Ready With Me, and during that video, I dropped something heavy on top of this palette, and it made a big mess, and I have some fallout, and this shadow has popped out of the palette, but I've really only used this palette one time. The shadow I'm bringing into this project is this matte shade right here. It's kind of a beautiful warm brown. 2 reasons. The first reason that I'm bringing this palette in is that I have worked on a Morphe eyeshadow before in the 35O palette, 35O matte palette. And I believe I was able to hit pan in like 25 uses or so, really, really fast. And I thought, you know, this will give me a little boost to my pan percentage. If I work on one of these Morphe palettes, you know, back to back to back, because I still have 3 more Morphe palettes that do not have pan in them, I can add 3 palettes to my pan in every palette percentage. But the other reason I chose this shade is because I feel like I need this shade in my life right now. It is a shade that is missing from my Pan That palette. As you guys know, I'm working on 2 quads in my Pan That palette, And I also have my Baby Pan That palette, and they're all kind of very neutrally bronzy shades. Both out of those 3 little palettes, the duo and the 2 quads, I basically have like 4 shadows that are light matte shades that I could use in my transition area. And then I have 3 very dark brown shades. But what I don't have is like a mid-tone brown like this. And this is really what I'm craving, especially with everybody doing that latte makeup look. I'm kind of feeling it. And I really feel like in all those looks that I'm seeing, a shade like this is part of that eye look. So I feel like as we get into fall, I see myself using the darker browns in my Pan That palette much more, but I just need something in my crease in between the dark brown and the light brown that I currently have in those eyeshadows. And I just feel like this would be perfect. I don't know if that makes any sense whatsoever, but in my head, I can see it. Have I tried it? No. Do I know for a fact that I need it? No. But I just really think that this would be the perfect crease shade for all these looks I would like to be doing. And it kind of goes along with that latte eyeshadow trend that is so popular that I see literally every time I open up Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. It's all over the place. So yeah, maybe I can focus on that shadow and in 25 uses have pan on it like I did in the other matte shadow in the other Morphe palette. That would be wonderful. So for the first time in a very long time, we are up to 4 eyeshadows again. I hope I'm not shooting myself in the foot. I might be, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So that's what's going on with Pan and a Repalette. That is it for this update. I feel like it was a really good month. And I'm really, really optimistic that I'm going to have one more palette with a pan in it by next month's update. So fingers crossed. Looking at you, just peachy mats. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.